your family killed?
So National Floors Direct, I saw their commercial on television and called because it just seemed enticing, as most commercials do. Um, the representative came to my house. He was charming, we worked out a deal, which is fine. He showed me the samples. He was fixing putting a new floor in my kitchen. Um, and we scheduled a time for the installers to come, which was Saturday, March 9th. And I mean, there's other things like, he told me that I could finance the floor, because they don't accept credit cards, which is very interesting to me. They only accept either cash or check. Um, which I probably it should have been a red flag for me, but whatever. Anyway, he told me that I could finance it so that way I could, without interest for a year. And I was like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And then when they called to tell me that they were coming, they said, okay, don't forget you owe whatever it was, like $1,300 or whatever it was to, on the day that they come. And I was like, no. They told me that I can, you know, pay it over time. And they said, oh, well, no, if you want to do that, it's going to cost more. And I was like, what do you, like, they never said that. Like, he never said anything about that. So that was another whole issue beside from it. It ended up costing not that much more, maybe another $150, but still, like, they should have told me that it would have cost more if you wanted to do that. Anyway, so I talked to the guy the day before and we went over everything, and he said, about moving my appliances. And I said, well, if he moves the stove, like, I can't disconnect the gas because I live in a condo development. And he was like, well, then we're not going to move the stove. And I was like, that's fine. You don't have to move the stove. Like, it could go in front of the stove. It doesn't matter to me, And he was like, okay, that's fine. So we made it that they weren't going to move the stove. So Saturday morning, they come to my house. Two people come to install the floors, and I was in the house the whole time. My husband was in the other room, and every once in a while I would like look in on them to make sure they were doing the right thing. And at one point I looked in and the stove was moved. And I was like, why did you move the stove? And he was like, oh, he didn't really speak English so well. So I was trying to like understand. And he was telling me, oh, I don't, he was moving the stove. And I was like, you weren't supposed to, but all right, well, now that you moved it, like, what can I do? Anyway, he puts the stove back. And the next time, like, I look in and I notice that the stove was broken. Like, he had broken the door to the oven. And I said something to him and I said, you're going to fix the door. He's like, oh, I fix at the end. I'll fix it at the end. It's like, okay. So he installs the whole floor. And he calls me in and I go to sign a contract, but I noticed that he didn't fix the oven door. So I was like, well, can you fix the oven door, please? You broke it. And he was like, oh, and he was trying, and he's like, I can't. I was like, well, what do you mean you can't? Like, you broke the oven door, you have to fix it. And I was like, well, you need to call National Floors Direct. You need to call them right now. And he goes, well, no one's there. It's Saturday. No one's there to call. I was like, that seems a little strange to me. But so he gave me this contract that said, it was like a checklist, like, did everything go as planned, whatever. And I circled on one thing, I circled no. And I wrote, oven door needs to be fixed. And I signed it. He took the original copy. I kept the carbon copy. And as soon as he left, I called National Floors Direct and explained what happened. I said, like, they broke my oven. And he the guy, somebody did answer, and he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't believe that happened." He goes, "Can you email me pictures of what happened?" I said, "Sure." And I emailed pictures over what happened. He said, before I hung up, he said, "Somebody will get back to you on Monday." And I was like, okay. Well, Monday came, no phone call. Tuesday came, no phone call. Wednesday came. So finally I call, and the person who answered the phone said, "Oh, we're not responsible for any damage done to an appliance when it's moved in your house." I said, "What do you mean you're not responsible?" Now, if they would have just said, "Fine, we'll pay for it," this whole problem would have not even existed. Like, we would have been done. Like, but they said, "No, we don't want to pay to have your oven fixed." And I said, "Well, your company damaged my oven." At this point, I didn't know how much it was going to cost to fix my oven, me. So I said, like, "You need to pay for that." And they said, "Well, we don't do that. It said it in your contract that we don't pay to pay for any damage to appliances." And I was like, "Well, number one, you never said it was in your contract. Like, that would be something that you would have said to a consumer, that it wasn't going to get paid for, and when I called the guy the day before, he never said anything either, or he called me. Anyway, so she's like, "Maybe you should have read your contract more clearly." Like, she kind of gave me an attitude. And so I went back to my contract, and yes, it does say that, but in my contract, it also said that they should not have moved my oven. Like, it said, "Do not move the oven." So I called them back, and I explained this, and I said, "It says that you're not supposed to move my oven." And they said, "Well, and they were like, "No, we're still not paying for it," pretty much. So so I emailed them, um, I forget if it was an email or a phone call. I've played so many phone tags with this company. It's been crazy. Um, I think it was through an email that I said, um, I'm calling to get my oven fixed. I can't go without an oven anymore. I said, "And you will be paying for the oven, blah, blah, blah." And um, they pretty much didn't respond. So I had a company come. Now, when a company comes to fix my oven, they charge like $150 just to come. And then it's additional, like, whatever it costs to fix the oven, right? So I had this company scheduled to come like that week or something. And I I sent another email saying that they're coming on whatever such and such a date. I will be expecting you to pay for the damage to the oven. And their response was, "Well, we might pay for it if you're able to get 3 estimates. So call 3 different companies, get 3 estimates, and if all the estimates are the same, we might pay for it." That was their response. I said, "Well, I'm sorry. Like, that's fine. Like, if you want me to get 3 estimates," I said, "each estimate is about $150 just for the company to come. So if you're willing to pay," and this was done on a phone call. I said, "If you're willing to pay for 3 different estimates and and reimburse me for these 3 estimates, and then additionally all the damage to the," oh, she's like, "No, we won't do that." I said, "Well, then I'm just getting 1 estimate, and you will pay for." "Oh, we're not doing that." I said, "Well, you will be doing that because it's your company." Like, it's just like it was always a fight. It's a fight with them. So finally, I hang up. Didn't get anywhere, but this company came, fixed my oven. Thank God it actually only cost $250, something around that, to fix the oven, which was, thank God. So when they came, they said, and I put that they're going to bill the National Forest Direct company. So they leave. 2 days go by, and I get this email from National Forest Direct saying, oh, prior to that, before I knew how much the oven was going to cost, and they were giving me all this backlash about not paying, I called the finance company, which is Synchrony Bank. That's the company that I was going to finance all the $1,300, whatever it was, to cover the cost of the floor. I called them and I was like, I'm disputing the charges. Because at that point, I didn't know if it was going to be, $200 to fix my oven, or it was going to be $1,000 or more to replace my oven. Like at that point, I didn't know. So I called them to dispute the charges. Right. So now all this other stuff happened. It's only $250. National Florist Direct sends me a document that says something about that they're willing to pay the $250 of the alleged damage. Like it was like everything was like alleged damage, and like they don't want to take ownership that they damaged my oven. And so I refuted that. I was like, I emailed them back. I called them. I was like, I probably called them like 20 times. And I was like, this is not alleged damage. Like, thank you that you're now willing to pay for have my, because now it's maybe only $250. I don't know. But they're telling me that it's, they don't believe that, that their company ruined my oven or like broke my oven or whatever. And they said, oh, well, there's no way that we can change the wording in the document. I said, yes, there is. I said, there's a way. You were able to edit the document to put in the $250 and blah, blah, blah cents. You can edit the wording of the document. Come on, it's a computer. I know computers. You can edit pretty much anything. And they're like, no, we can't. So meanwhile, I get a response back. So now that was the beginning. This is now the beginning. All this took like a month. So now it's the beginning of April. And I get an email back from Synchrony Bank saying that they denied the disputed charges, which I was expecting because, all right, maybe it only cost me $250, but whatever. But in the disputed charges, there's a reason. They're like, well, here's the reason why we disputed your charges. And it was a letter from National Florist Direct saying, it was a letter to them with all this false information. It said that I never told them that my oven was damaged, which was a complete lie. Because number one, I told them, and then in a responded letter, I wrote all of this to National Florist Direct. It said, I told the installer, number one, I told them that they broke my oven. Number two, I called that day and told them that they broke my oven. And number three, I emailed them with pictures that day to tell them that they broke my oven. So for you to tell me that I never told them that they broke my oven is a complete lie. And then they also said that the contract or the checklist that I signed never said anything about a broken oven. And so what they did was that checklist that I had signed that day that the installer left, and I wrote nothing, was it done to your satisfaction? And I said no, and I said oven needs to be fixed. Somehow National Florist Direct fraudulently created a different checklist that didn't have that, and they fraudulently, I guess, forged my signature on it because it was not my signature. So on top of everything, now they have a criminal act of forging my signature on something so that they can get away with whatever that they're trying to get away with. So I then to the Synchrony Bank. Like I called Synchrony Bank and I told them everything. I said, look, this letter that they sent you is completely false. And I told them everything. I said, this, and this. I said, and that document they sent you is fraudulent. They forged my signature. That is not my signature, and all this and that. And they said, oh my, and then they were agreeing with me, right? The bank. And I said, so now you're going to dispute the charge again, and at this point, I know it's only $250, but at this point, it's just like, I don't know. It's just like the principle of the thing, like, how dare you forge my signature on something and fraudulently come up with a contract that's going to try to make you look good? Like, that's not right. That's not what a company should be doing, right? So um, I then told them to dispute all the charges again, and they're resubmitting it. And they sent me a paper that said, and I had to send them like a letter outlining all the things that I told them on the phone. I said this, and this, the fraudulent. And then I also went to the police station and filed a report on forgery because it's a criminal offense. And I then sent another email to National Florist Direct, where all of a sudden now they are able to change the contract. And now all of a sudden the contract says the damage we caused, or whatever the words are. So don't tell me that you couldn't change the wording, because now all of a sudden you can automatically, because you're doing something criminal, now all of a sudden the contract is changing, or that little document was changing, right? And then they kept calling me, and like now they're calling me and they're calling me and calling me, and I can't answer the phone during the school, like the day, because I'm a teacher, so I can't answer the phone during the day. But they call at like 9 a.m. Then they'll call again an hour later, and then an hour later, and then and like every time they leave a message saying, "Please call me about your order. Please call me about your order. Please call." And like, if I don't answer you the first time, like I will call you back. But they just kept calling and calling and calling and calling. Anyway, I finally answer the phone one time because it was like right after school. And she was like, I need you to sign that. I need you to sign that document. And I said, I'm not signing that document until somebody addresses the fraudulent and forged signature issue. And they're like, what fraudulent and forged? They're like, they're playing dumb, and I was like, well, I responded to your email, and I said the whole thing, like, I sent you a copy of the original. Oh, and then their whole thing is, oh, you probably sent it to the wrong email, which is a lie, because in the email that they sent me, it said, please send any correspondence to this email, which I did. So now they're telling me that that's the wrong email. So then I have to send it to a different email. So I'm like, this whole thing is so blown out of proportion right now. It's so crazy. But so I did. I sent it to another email, and I said, somebody needs to address the situation like ASAP. And of course, so finally, I get lots more phone calls, but nobody seems to want to address the forged signature. Finally, somebody answers the phone and says, she's like, well, we can't guarantee that was a fraudulent document, because that's the document we got. And I said, that is completely a lie, because I have the yellow carbon copy. Like, I didn't create a yellow carbon copy of the document. You have the original white, top sheet. This is the yellow carbon copy. Like, this is not something that I fraudulently created. Like this. Oh, and they're going, well, you can't really prove that. And I was like, yes, I can. Like this. We kept going back and forth, and I said, I said, like, I did go to the police. I told her, I said, I went to the police. I filed a report. I said, like, this just needs to be addressed. And she was like, well, what would you like us to do? Like, she was getting very nasty. And this whole, like, their customer service is so bad, because every time I spoke to somebody, they were getting nasty. And I said, you know what? I really need to speak with one of your supervisors. And she was saying, well, there is no other person. And every time I ask for somebody else, they always tell me there is nobody else. And I said, or she'll say, because I've asked this several times when I've been talking to them, they'll say, well, it's just another manager, and they're just going to tell you the same thing. That they say that a lot. So there's never somebody that I can talk to that's, above them or whatever. And pretty much she said, there's really nothing that I can do, pretty much. Like, it's almost like, well, too bad we forged your name. We're going to pay for your $250 to fix your oven, but oh, well, too bad. Like, we forged your name, kind of a thing. You just want us to admit that? That's what she said. So you just want us to admit it? I'm like, well, it would be a start. like you could start by admitting to what you did, that you fraudulently like created a document and then signed my name, you know, and then pretty much that phone call ended. And the next thing I know, she deleted that contract. So, so now I'm down to, I don't know what, like, so now they don't want to pay for anything because she just got annoyed that I was, like just being a customer that just wants, this to not happen to anybody else. I don't want somebody to, um, have this company come to their house and then like just do something that's going to benefit them. Like how dare you create something fraudulently and then sign somebody's name to it? Like to me, that's ridiculous. So I put in, something to the bank and I'm waiting to hear about what the bank wants to do. Like granted, like if they just give, just pay me the $250 at this point, like it's been going on since March 9th, right? And it's the end of May, like it's been a long time that I've been having to deal with this, you know, and I wrote to the bank and I said, look, really, they should be paying my $250 or whatever it was. I said, honestly, for all this heartache and for this criminal act, they really should be paying for all of it. At this point, they should be paying just for me to deal with all of this nonsense. But it's still not ended. So that's kind of where we are at this point.